Here's what's coming up on the world today. Dutch authorities say Omicron variant in the Netherlands before South Africa alert. WHO chief urges rational measures against Omicron variant. Plus, Moderna CEO warns COVID-19 shots less effective against Omicron. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shubowale. The Omicron variant was already in the Netherlands when South Africa alerted the World Health Organization about it last week. That's according to Dutch authorities. It remains unclear where or when the variant first emerged, but this has not stopped countries around the world from rushing to impose travel restrictions, especially on visitors coming from Southern Africa. The latest to announce new measures include Spain and Hong Kong. Well, the head of the World Health Organization has called for countries to keep calm and take rational measures in response to the new coronavirus strain. Tedros Ghebreyesus says some countries are introducing blanket measures aimed at the Omicron variant, which are not based on evidence or effective on their own. The WHO chief says these are penalizing Southern African countries that reported the strain. He says there are still many questions regarding the new variant, including its transmission, severity of disease, and the effectiveness of tests and vaccines. In remarks to a closed-door meeting, Dr. Tedros calls on WHO member states to take rational and proportional measures. And over in England, face coverings are now compulsory on public transport and shops as part of measures to tackle the Omicron variant. Face coverings were already still compulsory in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Under the new measures, international arrivals will have to self-isolate until they get a negative result in a PCR test.
I think it's good ultimately, right? It seems like, we have to be precautionary until we sort of know the full extent of the new variant. So, I don't know, I think a lot of people are worried, particularly in the run-up to Christmas and, worried about the implications. And obviously everyone wants to be able to travel, meet family and things like that. But ultimately there needs to be some caution, right, until we see the full extent of what's ahead of us. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I was very surprised actually when the mask wearing on public transport was lifted. I thought it should have remained all the time. As soon as they were lifted, less than 10% of people were wearing a mask on the train in the morning. Considering there were 40,000 infections of the Delta variant long before this new variant appeared, I was surprised. So I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. I'd rather have a nice Christmas than not. Obviously, I want to go home and see my family, and if I have to wear a mask, that's absolutely fine. I didn't stop wearing mine anyway, so it's fine with me.
No, I think we need to not lock down, but I think we need to take more precautions, mandatory masks, perhaps reducing certain distances, when we're going to pubs and clubs. So I think at the moment it's just still too lax.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says it's likely booster COVID-19 vaccinations would increase protection against severe disease from the new Omicron variant, even if effectiveness against infection is reduced. All adults in the UK are now being offered boosters, and the NHS says people will be called in priority order.
Whatever the risks, the answer is everywhere and always to get the booster, because we think that it's overwhelmingly likely that the booster getting vaccinated will give you more protection. I think what Stéphane Bancel was saying is probably right, but you need to look at what he's not necessarily saying that this will mean that the vaccines are ineffective against serious illness or death, and they may be less effective in preventing transmission. We see some evidence from South Africa that it's the virus Omicron is transmitted between people who have been vaccinated, but it's not clear to what extent this means that you're going to pick up a severe case of of Omicron, or that will have a problem with serious illness and death. I know that people will be thinking, have we got to make another great surge like we did earlier this year? And I'm afraid the answer to that is yes. And I just want to say that we'll throw everything at it. And I hope that we can do the same thing again, because everybody can see the situation. We've made a huge amount of progress against the Delta version of the virus, of coronavirus. We now have this question about the Omicron variant.
Well, Dr. Monique Gasper is a general practitioner in the UK. She joins us now for more. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Good evening, Tenny. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So the government has introduced a number of measures to combat this new strain, including compulsory face coverings. Do you think this is enough, though, to keep this variant at bay?
It's a good question. I'll start by saying, we're really pleased for the countries that actually highlighted us to this problem. As more information is coming through, we can now see that it was already here prior to South Africa and Botswana raising the alarm about the Omicron variant. So using masks now is really just mitigating measures while we're trying to find out as much as possible about this new variant. All the information is not in. There's still more questions than answers, but we can't leave things hanging while we're waiting for science to catch up with what this new variant is bringing to the table now. So I think it's a bit late, but we should never have stopped wearing masks in the first place. And the majority of people were still wearing masks. It's just that it wasn't a legal requirement, which as of today, it is now a legal requirement.
And does seem, like you mentioned, it's thought that this variant was already in Europe way before South Africa reported it. This basically means that there are more cases than we know of in Europe, right?
I believe so. Yesterday, it was the announcement was that there were just 3 confirmed cases. As of this evening, it's up to 22 and rapidly rising. And obviously, we don't test every single PCR for exactly what variant it is. So there's a mix of the Delta variant, which was the original one that was in circulation, as well as this new Omicron. And I think that if science starts sequencing every single PCR test, we'll probably find a lot more of the Omicron variants.
And could this be to blame for the recent surge in cases we've seen in Europe in recent days? I mean, that's a scary thought.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, I said, could we blame this possibly on the recent surge in cases we've seen in Europe in recent days?
We don't know. We don't know. At the moment, we're still playing catch up with this coronavirus, and it's changing each time, which is why we just have to be so careful, and we have to, as much as possible, follow the science. Now we are pushing for everyone to get a booster dose that's over 18. The 12 to 15-year-olds are now being offered a second dose. The interval between dosing has reduced from 6 to 3 months. So we're doing everything that we possibly can. But unless everybody is fully vaccinated, then the virus has a chance to mutate, and this will just keep happening. It's not a question of blaming any specific country or continent. It's all of us in it together, and we all just have to do our best to bridge the gap and make sure that we're all safe.
Yeah, good points made there. And what's the atmosphere like in the health community in the UK with the emergence of this variant, especially with concerns that current vaccines might not be as effective?
I think everybody, my colleagues, we're all a little bit wary. I'm sure the entire population, there's a lot of pandemic fatigue, but we know that there's still a job to be done. So we're all taking a deep breath and pulling our socks up and thinking, right, what do we have to do? At the moment, there's almost 1,500 vaccination site chemists dotted around the country for everyone who's eligible to try and get their booster dose. But I think amongst the health professionals is a little bit of weariness, a little bit of fatigue. For me personally, it's apprehension at what the future holds with this virus. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that we've caught it early. And like the Prime Minister said, what we don't want is for it to seed into the community. So we're doing all the measures as early as possible to try to prevent that from happening.
All right, then, Dr. Moni Gaspar, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
Thank you, Tenny. Nice chatting with you.
And over in Asia, Singapore will hold off on more reopening measures while it evaluates the Omicron COVID-19 variant and will increase testing of travellers and frontline workers to reduce the risk of local transmission. The health minister says a quarantine-free entry policy for vaccinated arrivals in the Asian financial and travel hub will not be extended to more countries for now, while current social distancing measures will remain in place. The Omicron variant has not yet been detected locally.
So far, indications is that we do not have any Omicron infections in Singapore yet. We are testing travelers and air crew who arrived in Singapore over the past 10 days and have recent travel histories to the affected regions. There are over 200 of them. We have done 174 tests so far, and all are negative. Second, we will freeze all new VTLs and relaxations on social measures, and this is a prudent thing to do for now when we are faced with a major uncertainty. Third, we have implemented a new set of healthcare protocols for Omicron. We will continue the current healthcare protocols for Delta. As for Omicron measures, the healthcare protocols will be a lot stricter and quite similar to the initial protocols we implemented when we first encountered COVID-19. And when we learn more about it, I'm confident we will learn to live with Omicron, just like how we have learned to live with Delta.
The EU drug regulator could approve COVID-19 vaccines that have been adapted to target the new variant within 3 to 4 months if needed. Speaking to the European Parliament, EU Medicines Agency's Executive Director, Emma Cook, says it's not known if drug makers would need to tweak their vaccines to protect against Omicron, but the agency is preparing for that possibility.
We put in I think it's very important that we continue to give the message that the current vaccines provide protection, and we need to ensure that those who are eligible for boosting get the booster doses. At the same time, we need to prepare in case there is a need to change the current vaccines, and that's work that the companies will do. We could be in a position that were there a need to change the existing vaccines, we could be in a position to have those approved within 3 to 4 months. That's from the start of the time when they would start to change. But a decision needs to be made first whether that's necessary.
The review in 2026 for this.
Well, her comments came as drug maker Moderna's CEO set off fresh alarm bells after he warned that vaccines were unlikely to be as effective against the variant first detected last week as they have been against the Delta version. In an interview with the Financial Times, Stefan Bancel told the paper that he does not believe there is a world where the effectiveness is the same level that vaccines had with the Delta variant. He said he's spoken to scientists who told him that this variant is not going to be good. He also said it could be months before pharmaceutical companies can produce vaccines at scale to counter the new strain. And away from the COVID-19 pandemic to other stories now, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has warned that Russia would pay a high price for any new military aggression against Ukraine. He made the comments as the Western military alliance met to discuss Moscow's intentions for massing troops on the border of the former Soviet Republic. The West has already shown that it can with economic, financial and political sanctions against Moscow, and that's according to Stoltenberg, who told reporters ahead of talks of the alliance's foreign ministers in the Latvian capital, Riga.
We will also, of course, address the situation on the... we see a Russian military build-up, we see heavy armor, we see drones and combat-ready troops, and we call on Russia to be transparent, because this is unprovoked and unexplained. So therefore, Russia needs to be transparent, and they need to reduce tensions and to de-escalate. We will also, of course, address the situation on the border with Belarus, where we see the Lukashenko regime using vulnerable people to put pressure on neighboring countries. We stand in solidarity with all allies affected, and we also work very closely with the European Union.
Can you hear me? Well, the US has also warned of serious consequences for any renewed Russian aggression as the Western military alliance, NATO, met in Latvia to discuss Moscow's massing of troops on the border with Ukraine. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says America is very concerned about Russian troop movements near the Ukrainian border.
Seen Russia's playbook many times over. And part of that playbook is to attempt to create and manufacture a so-called provocation as justification for something that Russia is planning to do all along. And so whether what's been reported fits into that playbook, I don't know. But as I've already said on a couple of occasions, and again, we'll have a lot more to say about it tomorrow, we are very concerned about the movements we've seen along Ukraine's border. We know that Russia often combines those efforts with internal efforts to destabilize a country. That's part of the playbook, and we're looking at it very closely.
So other security matters, the chief of Britain's Foreign Spy Service has warned that the West's adversaries such as China and Russia were racing to master artificial intelligence. The world's spies from Langley in London to Moscow and Beijing are trying to grapple with advances in technology that are challenging traditional human-led spying operations which dominated for thousands of years.
Unlike Q in the Bond movie, we are living through an era of dramatic change in the security landscape. We have to defend ourselves as a country against a growing threat from state actors within an international system which is not working as it should do to constrain conflict and aggression. We face adversaries who are feeling emboldened, encounter fewer constraints, and are able to draw on greater resources than in the past. We face transnational challenges, from climate change to pandemics, which create an entirely new level of need for global cooperation. Our adversaries are pouring money and ambition into mastering artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and synthetic biology, because they know that mastering these technologies will give them leverage.
And finally on the programme, Barbados has officially removed Queen Elizabeth as its head of state and become the world's newest republic. In an overnight ceremony in the capital, Bridgetown, Dame Sandra Mason was sworn in as president. The Prince of Wales and singer Ariana attended the event, which coincided with the country's 55th anniversary of independence.
With firm resolve and in one voice, from this day and forever, declare Barbados a parliamentary republic.
That was the moment Barbados ditched Britain's Queen Elizabeth as head of state on Tuesday and became the world's newest republic. A 21-gun salute fired as the national anthem played over a crowd in the capital, Bridgetown. Prince Charles stood somberly as the Queen's royal standard was lowered and Dame Sandra Mason was sworn in as the president.
Possessing a clear sense of who we are and what we are capable of achieving, in the year 2021, we now turn our vessel's bow towards the new republic. We do this so that we may seize the full substance of our sovereignty.
As part of celebrations, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who led Barbados' Republican movement, declared singer Rihanna a national hero. The birth of the Republic comes 55 years to the day since Barbados declared independence, and nearly 400 years since the first English ship reached the Caribbean island shores and claimed it for King James I. Prince Charles used his speech to acknowledge the darkest days of Britain's colonial past.
I was so deeply touched that you should have invited me to return to Barbados and to join you on behalf of the Queen at this moment of such significance for your remarkable nation. The creation of this republic offers a new beginning, but it also marks a point on a continuum, a milestone on the long road you have not only travelled, but which you have built. From the darkest days of our past, and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history.
Barbados received 600,000 enslaved Africans between 1627 and 1833 who were put to work in the sugar plantations, earning fortunes for the English owners. While Britain casts slavery as a sin of the past, some Barbadians are calling for compensation from the UK. Barbados will remain a republic within the Commonwealth, a grouping of 54 countries across Africa, Asia, the Americas and Europe.
And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shaboale.